Welcome, friends, to another exciting episode of A VGM Journey, and I'm your host, The Messenger. The track that we're playing into today's show is At Doom's Gate from the game Doom 2016. It was originally composed by Robert Prince, and this arrangement was done by Mick Gordon. I am so excited to share this show with you guys today. And to mark the 10th anniversary of the release of Doom 2016, I just thought it would be really cool to cover the game and play some really awesome tunes from it. And I say let's kick it off with, I would say, the most famous track from the game, which is BFG Division. That track that you just heard, that was BFG Division from Doom 2016, and it was composed by Mick Gordon. That track was really awesome, and the game itself was also awesome too. And for those of you that don't know, Doom was a 2016 first-person shooter that was supposed to be a reboot of the Doom series, but later entries kind of retcon that and say that is actually part of the entire series as a whole. And it wound up being one of those games that I was super hyped for and wound up not being disappointed at all. I've always really liked Doom, especially Dooms 1 and 2. And when I first saw gameplay for Doom 2016, I had a feeling it was going to be like if Doom 3, which it was a game that I liked but didn't love, played more like Dooms 1 and 2, where it's super fast-paced, and there were power-ups and key cards that you had to find, and you also had to run around these sort of maze-like levels, which it didn't really seem so maze-like in Doom 2016, but I still felt the spirit of the original Dooms. I think I might have rambled on a little too long now, and I think we should play another track, and that we're going to go with one of my favorite combat tracks, which is Damnation. Once again, it's from Doom 2016, and it was composed by Mick Gordon. That track that you just heard, that was Damnation from the game Doom 2016, and it was composed by Mick Gordon. I think tracks like this really gets me into a bit of a groove as I'm jumping and shooting the hordes of demons that are coming after me. And that this specific track plays whenever you're in hell and you have those big arena moments where you're having to run around trying to avoid getting hit while fighting these demons. And the track itself definitely has a very unrelenting vibe to it, where it just seems like they just keep coming and coming, trying to overwhelm you as you try to pick them off one by one. And I would say that things get especially crazy towards the end of the game when you're dealing with all kinds of different enemy types, such as the imps, cacodemons, mancubuses, revenants. There were definitely times where I was starting to feel super overwhelmed, and that I would bring out the BFG, which it has a very limited amount of ammo that you can get for it, but it does shoot this giant green energy ball that wipes out all the demons that are within range. I say that it's about time to move on to our next track, and I think this is a really cool one. The track is Cyberdemon, and once again, it is from Doom 2016, composed by Mick Gordon. That track that you just heard, that was Cyberdemon from the game Doom 2016. It was composed by Mick Gordon. I think that was a really cool track, and for it being a boss theme, and just comparing it to a lot of other tracks in the soundtrack, I just find it a bit unique, and that you don't really get the super high energy, unrelenting sounds like a lot of the other combat tracks, and that this has a bit of a creepy yet more, I don't want to say personal sounding, but just more of like an intimate, just one-on-one type of battle, which context wise in the game it is. And it's also cool that in Doom 2016, fighting the Cyber Demon is like actually fighting against a boss. 'Cause in the original Doom, you're just running around this arena, just firing rockets at him, and he's firing rockets at you, and you're just trying to just move around, trying to avoid the rockets. But in Doom 2016, it just feels like it's like an actual boss that has different phases and they have different moves. He still fires rockets at you, but at least he does it in a really cool and interesting way. I know that this has been talked to death, but there is an infamous section in the song at about the 2 minute mark where if you play the song through a spectrogram, you will see 666 and a pentagram. And I'm talking specifically this part. And I don't know about you guys, but I just find it cool when a lot of these VGM tracks, they have Easter eggs in them. You know, either just a reference to something else or just crazy things like this where, man, it's pretty crazy. And I do have to ask everybody, those weird vocal that pops up, doesn't that kind of remind you of like Jason Voorhees and Friday the 13th? Or is it just me? Definitely got a bit of a creepiness to it, which I think it's pretty cool. We're going to move on to another track, and that track is Vega Core. Once again, it's from Doom 2016, composed by Mick Gordon. That track that you just heard, that was Vega Core from the game Doom 2016. It was composed by Mick Gordon. And that's going to just about do it for the show today. If you guys like what you've been listening to, have your friends check out the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, whatever kind of podcatching service that you could think of. I'm more than likely going to be on there. You can email the show at vgmjourney@yahoo.com, and you could also check us out on both X and Blue Sky at VGM Journey. We also have a Discord server for the show, which I'll provide a link to that in the show notes, where you can hang out with your fellow VGM journeymen and talk about games, music, and even look at some cool art. We're also going to play things out with one more track, and this is the final boss theme for the Spider Mastermind. The track is called Mastermind, and once again, this is from Doom 2016 and composed by Mick Gordon. Have a good one, everyone.